Hey, that's a cool feature. Look at that.
Uh,
Getting a little low there.
yeah, I also think there's a bug in there.
Ooh.
I mean, it's got to be sanitary, right?
I mean, it is sanitized.
Right? Because it's just got to be careful not to pour the bug into the cup.
Yeah. I mean, people eat bugs all the time with much worse like flavors. So how bad can it be?
In this case, I'm going to go with a texture thing. It's going to be a texture thing.
Yeah.
I'm using the light of my computer to make sure it's a quality check to make sure that no bugs get through.
There
I'm
you
going
go.
to count how many bugs I saw.
You remind me of Tallahassee. I just rewatched Zombieland 1 and 2 recently. I hate coconut. Not the taste, the consistency.
Dude, that's a thing, though.
Yeah. Speaking of things that you are welcome to hate, welcome to another episode of the Black Tower Podcast, a
Oh,
Wheel of Time podcast. I
that was a
am
lovely
one of your
segue.
hosts. My name is Andrew. I Mahale the Bijans and Bijan the Mahales.
Oh, I love it when he does that.
Oh.
My name is Josh. I'm a Soravon Mahale. If there's a Soravon that needs Mahaling, I'm going to do it. I'm going to Mahale the hell out of any Soravon you can find. That's what the Black
Just
Tower
for the
pays me to
Mahale
do.
of it.
Just for the Mahale. They don't even pay me. I just love doing it. My payment is your tears.
It reminds me of a Master of Disguise. What's the position pay? What about honor, dignity, pride? I prefer cash.
I prefer cash.
Oh man, how's everybody doing? We are less than 2 weeks away from the Gathering Madness. I'm super excited. I'm super stoked. It's gonna be a fantastic time. Uh, things are falling into place. Things are coming together. I'm just excited. I I,
I
I
mean,
can't say more.
it is. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to figure out this lighting situation tonight because this is nonsensical. Anyway, yeah, no, I like the I like it. I'm excited. I cannot wait. Um, it's gonna be the best Gathering Madness ever, and I feel like we say that every year, and I don't even care. Best Gathering Madness ever.
I think it has progressively, definitely gotten better every year. I don't know how we top this year.
Dude.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, how it goes,
Yeah.
but
Look,
I
I
don't
so
foresee it going bad.
right. So I talked a little bit about Evermore, right? We're
Knock
just
on
gonna
wood.
take a quick sidebar real quick about Gathering Madness. Uh, I've talked about Evermore and how we did Evermore and how Evermore shut down. It's no longer. And some other company came in and bought it. And we had people say, hey, that was Brandon Sanderson. I did do the research. I did confirm Brandon Sanderson did not buy Evermore. He bought a plot of land next to Evermore where he intends to have Dragon Steel. Don't know if that's the name of the whatever. It's Dragon Steel. He's got Dragon Steel. And the cool part about this is that there's another company that did buy Evermore. They're currently revamping all of the buildings and sort of rebuilding it. And I'm hoping, to be quite honest, I'm hoping that the new company builds Evermore up to be what it should have been originally. Right? Because I loved Evermore. I did. I enjoyed it. But Evermore was very much a what you bring with you experience and not a catered to you experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
no, it does.
and then take
It's
into
a
account that
the
they were,
attitude that you bring with you and
yeah,
the desire. It's whatever story you desire to make of it. Like they give you the options there, but you have to pull it all together.
right. And I get on some level, I get that that's going to be the way it is anywhere you go, right? On some level, you have to bring a nice positive attitude with you, or you're just not going to have fun. I get that. I understand that. But there needs to be some catering to the audience as well if you want to keep going. And that take into account the
Well, and
fact that
food.
they skimped on the food budget. Like the
Yeah.
food was not good.
I don't know how the actual little restaurant they had in there is, because they had like an actual restaurant, but it was the line was just so long whenever we were there. There was just like no thank you. And
Well,
the two little what do they call them, concession stands,
yeah, they were bad.
like, yeah, it just wasn't that great. Like, hmm,
It was
small
bad.
portions, half microwave food.
Well, and they even had microwave food that should not have been microwaved, like jalapeno poppers. Those
Yeah,
needed to be deep fried, and they just microwaved them. And it was like,
yeah.
why did you do that? Now
Well,
they're
you could have
just
put them in like the oven, because the ones that you got, like, they were like you could buy from like Food Lion or Walmart. They were already breaded and like fried and then frozen.
yeah,
But you got to do those in the oven, because whenever you microwave them, you just like it forces
it
all the juice
steams
from the
them.
jalapeno out,
Yeah,
and so whenever you bite into it, the jalapeno is somehow still like rock cold, and then you
yeah,
just get
it
like
was.
hot ass jalapeno and cheese juice that just squirts out, gets in your beard.
Yeah, it was not good,
So
basically.
yeah,
So we're hoping that the next place does good. As a matter of fact, Vander's Keep, the place where we hosted the Gathering Madness,
hmm,
was a restaurant and catering hall. Like there, that was an actual, like they had a menu. It was a sit down experience, and it was really good. But apparently, there was a company that was running that, and they ended up going their own ways. I don't know. There's just a lot of that kind of thing,
yeah,
and I'm hoping that whoever takes it this time does a great job with it.
hopefully.
And
And
maybe we can do another showing. I don't know. But that's not what we're doing
you,
this year. Just for the people who are following along, just give them a rundown, give them a review.
yeah, so this year we're going to be in Charleston, South Carolina for a weekend. We're going to get a tour of the Citadel. We're going to go and get to see Robert Jordan's desk. That'll be hosted by the fantastic Dr. Michael Livingston. And then we're going to have a nice picnic nearby. And then we're going to go get a tour of the Jordan Guardians, Harriet's Gardens, out at the Dragon Castle. Or I would assume might be what they call where they live. And that'll be guided by the fabulous and lovely Maria Simmons. So we'll be doing all of that. We're gonna have some axe throwing Friday night. We're gonna have our Watt Tails contest. Probably Saturday night, depending on how many submissions we get. I think right now we're at 3, not including any stuff that we're gonna submit on our own. So get in your submissions. You have until the 20th or so to get those submissions in, because we have to buy the ingredients and all that. We're doing that. We got some snack water time. We're gonna have all the meals are gonna be basically home cooked. We're gonna get all the ingredients. We're gonna cook them at the Black Tower Outpost, which is this fantastic property that we've been able to rent. Beautiful looking property. I'm super excited about that. It's got like 3 private swimming pools. It's got 3 different little buildings. It can sleep like 36 people, and there's gonna be like right now there's gonna be like 17 of us there in person. So we're gonna have all the space to do all the fun activities. So super stoked. We're gonna have breakfasts together. We're gonna have lunches together. We're gonna have dinners together. We're gonna have a metaphysics panel that's gonna be super dope, where we're gonna be talking about the metaphysics behind weaves and weaving and any potential inherent limitations. Why are you stroking your own leg?
Pardon?
You were like moving the mouse like you were stroking your leg, like your chibi's leg.
Oh,
I was
good
like,
chibi. You're such a
yeah.
good chibi. I was
So
giving him pats. Do you want pats? You want me to?
yeah, if you could stroke my sword, I'd appreciate it.
When was the
Sharpen
last
my
time you gave
sword.
this thing a good polish?
Oh, almost every night, man. A man who lets his sword
About
go
10
dull
minutes
is not
ago.
prepared.
There's places to submit your what inspired cocktail recipes. Get
Yep.
those in. We need those.
Yep.
I
Virtual
guess I
tickets
could.
are still available. In person is done.
Yeah,
Finito
I guess I
out.
need to take that off the website.
Yeah, but virtual still going on. $15. It is the only way you can get access to any of the live streams. All of the live streams will be virtual only, and they will only ever go to. Of course, the live streams will only be virtual only because how else do you live stream? But they will only be available to those that have in-person tickets and virtual tickets. We do not have any plans to make them available outside of that. And if we do, it will be at least a year out. And I can guarantee we're not going to make every part of it available. So
Guarantee it.
we'll probably make parts of it. We'll probably use parts of it to like help like show like, hey, look at how much fun Gathering Madness was last year. So
Look how much fun we're having.
and if
Isn't
you're
this
worried about
fun?
having enough energy to come and have fun at the Gathering Madness, you probably won't get it by the time we get there, but you can have it waiting for you when you get back for that post-con crash. Go ahead and get yourself some W. Go over to w.gg, use code BTP, or just click the link in the show notes or description below
Snap.
and get yourself some W, some
For all of
fantastic
your
Jitterless energy powder.
energy needs.
It
That's
is
what you want
delicious.
right there.
It doesn't have any of those nasty artificial dyes and all those other things in there that make you feel like crap when the crash comes later on. It doesn't make you crash, or at least it hasn't for us. So go and grab that stuff. But yeah, uh, with that being said, anything else about Gathering Madness before we get into tonight's topic?
Gathering Madness is going to be off the chisane. It really is. We can't say this enough, but we're going to be doing, the Wheel of Time tour. Like I said, I'm so excited to be there. I'm so excited to see some of these things. I am genuinely looking forward to being there. And if you can't be there, we get it. But you should definitely make sure you get a virtual ticket, because there's going to be some exclusive, amazing things that are going to happen. And you just need to be there to be a part of it virtually.
Yeah. Well, with that, let's start getting ready to get into our episode. And as always, before we get into the episode, we need to make sure everyone's protected. So here is this episode's spoiler warning.
Hello, I'm Tam Sorrell Norm. You may remember me from the Dusty Wheel or the Black Tower podcast. I'm here to give you a public service announcement about spoilers, as this episode may contain some. As if you didn't already know that, like watching the film Titanic and being surprised that the boat sinks at the end of the movie. Hello, moron. The movie is called Titanic. Of course the boat fucking sinks. This show is called the Black Tower Podcast, as in from the Wheel of Time. And these three guys are Ashaman. I don't know about that judge. Anyway, you have been warned.
I keep telling you guys, I just showed up one day and you were like, is he with you? I thought he was with you. Well, nobody can tell him to go away. And then I was just like, I'm here.
Well, you were funny and you did things and you were pretty outgoing, so we kept you around.
I love it.
So we can use him.
We can use him.
He can be of use to the cause.
All right. Now that we're protected, we've done our diligence in advertising our event and Dubby, which we should have some Dubby at the event. That would be great. What is our topic tonight, Mr. Andrew?
So tonight we are going to be talking.
We're getting holy, if I'm not mistaken.
We are, and I'm very proud of the title of tonight's episode, especially for like all of our vets.
Yep.
Because I'm sure most, if not almost every vet that has deployed overseas in the 2000s.
Oh yeah.
Is familiar with a little energy drink called Rip It.
Not only that, but and here's the thing. You have a Rip It over in the Middle East, over in the desert, in the sandbox, and you come home and you're like, oh man, these things got me through my last deployment. And then you go to the store and you find a Rip It and you buy it and you start drinking it and it tastes different.
Yeah, it's not nearly
And
as good.
and the reason why is because the Rip It you get at home didn't sit out on the tarmac under the sun for 6 months, leaching precious metals from the can.
Leaching the heavy metals
Yeah.
from the aluminum cans. Oh, and it's the little squat cans too. That's
Yeah.
the thing. So, you know, you felt,
Love me
you
a
know,
good
like, oh,
Rip
I
It.
drink 5 of them, and you're like, oh, but they're tiny. Who cares?
Do you remember that scene in Lord of the Rings where Legolas takes a little teeny nibble? Lembas bread. Just one bite can keep a full man full for an entire day. And then the hobbits are like, how many did you eat? 5.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's Rip Its, you know, like the new guy comes in and he goes, a Rip It. It's so small, just one can keep you energized for a day. And then you got the salty old, like, crusty sergeants over there, like, how many did you drink? 14.
Hasn't even made it out on post yet, and he's already on his 4th one. Then you look over, no shit. So the true story, we had an Aussie dude. He had already drank a Rip It. He was getting ready to go and work out at the little like workout gym thing that we had right there behind the visitor center when I was in UAE. This dude took a whole scoop of pre-workout, dumped it into the Rip It, and then chugged the whole thing. And we were just like, this dude is gonna have to work out for 3 hours straight, or he's gonna have cardiac, or he's gonna like just straight go into cardiac arrest.
Dude.
Like,
Oh.
don't know how he survived, but
that's wow. He could probably still see colors or hear colors and see sounds to this day.
It was fucking wild.
Oh,
but he did though. He worked out for like 2 hours straight, like nonstop, like not just like going to one machine and doing it slow. Like this dude was like full on, just getting at it. Like, holy shit!
Would like you say that he had enough energy to tear a hole in the space-time continuum? Do you think he could see space and time weaving around him?
He could see something weaving around him. I can tell you that.
Dude, look. But, there's something about that. And I will die on this hill. You get enough caffeine in you all at once and you're like, it's almost like holding sardine, right? Like time seems to slow down and you're like, I can see the slightest crevasse of the leaf on the tree. And you start doing your thing and you're like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. And I feel like that's one of the first ingredients in needing to travel.
I mean, I could see it. That sounds about right to me. Not that I know anything about
that. No, we're experts in the field, my guy. You didn't know?
Experts in the field. So, I guess we can start off a little bit by talking about at least the one concrete thing we know that both skimming and traveling have in common. And that is the way that you open the gate to both.
Yes.
So for both, you have to be able to weave a gateway. The difference is where you weave the gateway to. Traveling, you're literally just weaving a gateway and opening a portal from point A in space-time to point B in space-time. Or you're making point A and B the same point in space-time, however you want to think about it. Skimming, you're opening the gateway to just darkness. And then you create a platform, get on it, and it moves in whatever direction you want.
Yeah, this was an interesting bit of information too, because skimming has some interesting rules, right? The first time we see skimming, Rand is chasing Asmodean into Ruidian, right? He leaves Cold Rock's hold, opens up a portal, jumps in there and starts, and essentially is in the skimming space. Let's call it the skimming space, right? And Rand is like jumping upstairs. He's like running upstairs as fast as he can because he's chasing Asmodean. And then he notices that Asmodean's like not moving. He's just, and he's like, hey, I wonder if I can do that. And all of a sudden he too is just floating on a platform. He's like, oh that's a lot better. That's going to save my endurance. But the entry point appears to be the same, but I don't know that the rules are the, well, no, actually they say specifically the rules are not the same when it comes to skimming and traveling, right?
Yeah.
Because if I go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, there are like definitely a handful of differences, but I want to see where you're going before I just be like, oh, the difference is blah, da, 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 da.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. I was just going to go, the difference so far, or at least the big one that I was about to lean into, was in order to travel, right, which is the instantaneous gateway, which is to open up a door from one place to another place. In order to do that, you must know both areas very well. You can't.
Correct.
I can't open up a gateway. Well, I mean, I can't open up a gateway at all, but I couldn't open up a gateway to somewhere I'm not familiar with or have never been to. Yeah, that's right.
That's my tied off gateway right there.
I've never been to, Seattle. So I could not open a gateway to Seattle. I couldn't do it because I'm unfamiliar with Seattle. Now, if I'm skimming, however, that gets a little bit more loosey-goosey. You can skim somewhere and be unfamiliar with the location, though I'm not sure how you know you've arrived at your destination. That's the part about skimming that gets me. It's weird because I feel like in order to enter the skim space, you have to have an idea of your destination, even if you don't know the specifics of it. But they talk about the amount of time it takes to skim from one location to another. Why? What is time in the skim space, and why does it, like? And I think this is why we had that conversation about it's the ways, right? It's the same space as the ways, or at least it's the same sort of dimensional property of the ways. And we believe that the ways were sort of based on skimming. So that's the big piece that I was jumping into right there.
Yeah, so with traveling, the only thing that you really have to know really well is your starting location. You don't have to know your destination really well. Like, there doesn't seem to be the limitation of I've been there to travel before. Now, you can use knowing the destination. We see this later on once everybody starts traveling around. They're like, hey, this thing opens up like a razor and slices anything in fucking half. To avoid doing that to, I don't know, a person, let's rope off areas that are and make them traveling grounds to where you just don't walk in here because the end of your life could just open up here at any second. What if it's just how long the traveler thinks it would take to get there? Ooh.
Oh, Reese busting in with the knowledge bombs.
Well, because because in Fires of Heaven, whenever Rand skims him and the like 5,000 or 6,000 troops
Yeah.
to Camelin, like there is no motion, but he has a sense of motion. Like he just feels like they're moving. And then he like gets lost in thought, and then suddenly he's like, "Oh, I feel like we've stopped moving," and opens another gateway.
Is that what it is? Is it sort of like an intuitive thing? You're just like, aha, I have arrived.
It may be because I mean there doesn't seem to be any limit to how fast or slow you can skim. We see Rand use it later on, and he skims for like quite a while, even though the distance he's going isn't that massive. But he does it because like he wants time alone to think. And it's like the only place he can be assured that nobody's gonna like show up. But when you're skimming, if you're trying to get directly from point A to point B, then you need to have a relative familiarity with both starting location and destination. It's almost like because there's distance in between, you still have to travel, you still have to go. You need to kind of know where you're going so that you can make a straight road that's the right length to go there. Whereas with traveling, you're just making the point you are identical to the point where you want to go through the gateway. So you don't really need to like be super familiar. You just know like I want to go here. Like I would still imagine you would have to have like some relative approximate idea.
Dude,
but
actually, no. What if Robert Jordan was inspired by like Samoan and Polynesian like sailing, right? Because that's what all they did was they would map where they came from, and that's how they would map and chart and navigate and things like that. What if that was sort of the inspiration? So like you know your location very well. I thought you had to know both very well. But if you just have to know your starting point very well, that makes an interesting sort of, navigational sailing reference to, the Samoan and Polynesian peoples and how they navigated between islands.
Well, think about like
that's awesome.
Whenever Avienda panics and opens a gateway and winds up in what?
True.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
She doesn't know where she's going, which you could argue is just like, okay, that's a side effect of not knowing where you're going. And I think it is true that the more familiar you are with your destination, you can precisely decide where you want to go. But if you've never traveled to Faldara, you can still travel to Faldara. It's just a bit of a gamble on exactly where in or around Faldara you're going to be. Just like with skimming, if you don't know your destination well enough, then you can still skim to it, but you're probably going to show up either a little past it or a little before it. You're not going to be exactly at the destination.
Oh gosh, that's such an interesting point. I like this.
I mean, that's also like whenever in the last battle when they're opening up gateways in the sky, like can you really know a spot in the sky well enough to open a gateway to it? Or do you just like stare up at the sky and like you can fix on that space? Like if there's no clouds, like how do you fix like a point in space in the sky? I mean, I guess that's easier than like, showing up in snowy ass Shanchan or Tremel King. But yeah. And that makes sense though, because with traveling, like you're not having to include any kind of travel time because there is no space in between where you are and where you're going. So it's like think of skimming. Like you played Minecraft before, right?
Yeah.
So you know how like in Minecraft when you go into the Nether, every one block you move in the Nether is 8 blocks in the overworld.
I didn't play that much Minecraft.
Oh. Well, you know what the Nether is, right?
Yeah, I know of it.
Yeah. So that's how the math works out. Every one block you move in the Nether, or at least used to be, is equivalent to moving 8 blocks in the overworld. So skimming could be something very much like that, where you're just moving much faster. Like it's a different like equivalency, kind of like going through the ways.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I like that. I like that. Well, because like I said, we've established that I'm pretty sure skim space and uh ways space. I'm just skim space and way space. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
We've established they've got the same rules, right? Like
skim space
they,
and ways space
yeah, they've got pretty much the same rules.
seem to have similar rules, but there doesn't seem to be either. There's just not enough time in it, or there it's segmented off where the skimming space doesn't appear to have Mashin Shin.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean, but by
Well,
similar rules though. As
oh
far
yeah,
as
yeah, similar,
as far
yeah,
as traversing through space time, you can, the rules there are similar. They seem to be
yeah.
such that you
That's
can,
because
yeah,
the ways seem like somebody found a way to merge skimming and portal stones,
yeah,
like a way to make like skimming paths persistent, and a way to like alleviate the stress of and the complications around using a portal stone to just go from one to the other. So it's like the destination to destination fast travel almost effects of the portal stones and skimming, but you get the concrete paths that you don't get with skimming, but you do with portal stones. And maybe that's how they merged it.
yeah. That's
So,
interesting.
um, the other thing is, oh, where did I find it? There's no way around the level of strength in the one power needed for skimming. Like there's nobody that, or there does not, we have not seen anybody that has like a talent for skimming.
Mm,
Like there's a minimum strength threshold to not only just open the gateway, but to create the platform for people to go on. And even that's finite. Like Rand hit a limit on,
yeah,
how large of a platform he could make.
I like um, I like what Reese is saying here. Thing if Rand, if it sounds like a math problem. If Rand thinks it takes 3 hours to get, and Logain thinks it
Mhm.
takes 5 hours, how long does it take them to get there? This is an interesting thing because Rand and Asmodee shared skim space.
Yeah.
So Rand, noting that Asmodean was going faster, was able to go faster and was able to gain on Asmodean, which, if it's all in your head, why is one person faster than someone else?
I wonder if it's the more concrete the destination or direction you're trying to go is in your mind, the quicker you can move to it. So he's trying to get to Asmodine, who he can see right in front of him. So that's a very concrete image for him to move towards and a direction for him to move. Whereas
Okay.
Asmodian is still having to imagine and guide everything in the direction of, his exit point for this skim.
Okay.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Again, this is what I love about these fucking books, man. They come at you and casually drop this bit of information then illustrate in detail rules of things, leaving us to speculate on, okay, what's this? What is this? What are we doing here?
That's why I love doing it, because there's also the thing where they're like, hey, for traveling, you need to know the area you're in extremely well. Like,
Yeah.
it needs to be like an hour or two of consideration and examination of the area to know. But then all the channelers get there and they're like, yeah, we need to study the area really well, but we found that if we just hold on to the one power, we can cut that time in half, sometimes in a third.
Right.
And so it's like, it's a little like, it makes sense that they're like, hey, you can do it without holding on to the power, but there's a variable in there. If you have the enhanced senses of holding on to the one power, you can drastically cut that time down. And then even if you don't know the area well enough, but somebody else does, and they open a gateway and go somewhere else, you can just piggyback off of their weave.
Yeah.
And just copy theirs and open a gateway to the same spot, because that's how Rand runs chasing what's his face around, because he doesn't do it as much with Ravine, because they only do it like once or twice. But is it Samael
Oh, yeah. Where he,
that, like, they're in and out of Teleron Riyadh, and they're in and out of this place and that place, and it's like gateway after gateway after gateway after gateway. Like, Rand has no idea where they're going. He just reaches out and forces, the gateway that Samael.
He's following the resonance of the weave. He's copying
Yeah.
the residual, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't know, like, anywhere they are or where they're going well enough to pinpoint anything.
So the location, okay, but that would imply then that the location, when it comes to traveling and not skimming, that would apply that the location is actually a part of the weave, right? If I open up a traveling gateway from my office to your office right now, that would look different than if I opened up a gateway from my office to your living room, per se, because those are two different locations. And that would also be why, if you travel somewhere, you automatically know it well enough to travel there again. Because you have in mind, in sight, in channeling muscle memory, the weave desired, the weave needed, or the element of the weave needed to get there. So it's like taking a test with half of the answers.
Do you automatically know the place you travel to well enough?
I thought so.
I didn't think so.
I thought that was a thing, because that was in when they started getting to the Tarman Gaiden, they were like traveling people to the different travel points so that they could learn the different travel points. The traveling yards, as it were. Was that not your impression?
I mean, I thought they still had to go there and like study the area to get to know it well enough.
I mean, I can see that. And I don't have on me an example of anybody doing differently, because the reread for this month was not Lord of Chaos. It was A New Spring. So everybody following along with the What Reread, hashtag What Reread, you should be reading A New Spring this month, which I know is a small one, but with things being crazy and busy like they are, I thought this was a good month to use a smaller book, a novella. It's a 12-hour long audiobook. Jeez, my brain is just shut down. So it's a lot shorter than the regular books, but we will be coming in strong with Lord of Chaos in the month of November. So if you're following along, if you're doing the thing, if you're having fun with us, then please, by all means, pick up and start reading. You can start reading anytime you want. And back to the subject at hand, I can't recall one way or the other. The only examples I can specifically recall are in line with what you said, which was you have to know the place you're coming from very well before you can travel out.
So, all right. It is necessary to learn the location in order to travel from a location. Holding the true source will speed up this process. Later revealed there is a trick to avoid this restriction, as it is possible to open a gateway within line of sight of your location without the limitation, after which the current location becomes sufficiently well known to the channeler to open a different gateway to any other location. If someone does not know an area well enough, they will either not be able to create a gateway at all, or it will be smaller than their normal ability with gateways. Robert Jordan also said that if you travel to a location, no, you do. You automatically learn it well enough to be able to travel from there. So yeah,
So
that is automatic. I did not remember that part being automatic.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But there's also like there's some weird math that goes into traveling, because it's like,
should we call it
is,
channeler math?
yeah.
You've heard of girl math. You've heard of boy math. Yeah. Now get ready for channeling math.
Yeah. So traveling is considered a talent, but with sufficient strength, you can mimic the talent, is what I'm gathering.
Sure.
So
yeah,
like,
no.
Androl's ability to weave gateways and travel ignores his strength and the power. So he has the talent of traveling.
Correct. Which we've established is a capital T talent.
Yeah.
Because nobody else can do what he does, how he does it.
But someone like Rand and Mazrim Taim and all the others, they have to be of a sufficient strength to mimic that talent and use the same weaves. But then it gets a little fucky wucky, because there's a minimum strength required to make the gateway at all out of a circle or out of a link. So here's where the math comes in.
Okay, hit it.
Anyone more than 2 levels weaker not being able to make the traveling weave, or are not able to make the traveling weave work at all. So basically would be like 2 would be smaller than or less than the gateway of useful size requirement. So if you take the out of a circle part to be as is in requirements for strength, it leaves 2 possibilities. The first is that the leader of a circle with strength less than this cannot make a gateway of any size work. It's really weird, clunky wording.
Okay, but the point being, we do have a definitive power level that normal people are able to create a gateway.
If the leader of a circle cannot themselves, if they do not themselves hold the strength to create the gateway for traveling, regardless of the amount of the 1 power they are given access to through a circle, they will not be able to create a gateway. That is the first possibility. So this is a possibility. It seems counterintuitive and goes against evidence in the books. All right. So Doesn't seem that way. Like Jessamine is only strong enough to weave a gateway when they are one of 4 linked kinswoman, because there's 2 that are killed by dark friends, and then she can no longer make a circle strong enough to travel. The second interpretation is, and here's where it comes in that weird leveling scale for channelers. Second interpretation is that a channeler at level 21-9 can make a gateway by linking with any channeler, i.e., as weak as 72 (60). But here, any size at all seems redundant. An increased amount of strength does not allow someone to create a gateway where they would otherwise not be able to. Suan Sanchi's new strength is far below the minimum strength to create a gateway, yet she is able to create a gateway large enough to crawl through with the aid of an Angreal. Similarly, Honora Lanson managed to create a gateway, who is only a little bit stronger than Suan Sanchi post-healing, managed to create a gateway large enough to pass through by pushing herself to draw more than one power than she could handle safely. Since circles allow an increased amount of strength to be safely drawn upon, it would be logical to assume that they would also allow a woman to travel in a circle where she was too weak to do so before. It may also be worth noting that all of the named examples from this previous excerpt are from the Brandon Sanderson books. This is possibly part of an expanded but not contradictory channeling mechanic invented by him in the last few books to give precedence to Androl's unique abilities.
So that is so interesting, because you've got an example of someone who, let me see if I can make a metaphor that might be a little bit more applicable. If I know a recipe to make a cake, right? I go into, Gordon Ramsay's kitchen, and he's got everything there, and I've got his recipe, and I'm going to make a cake. I've got the right pans, I've got the right mixing bowls, I've got the right ingredients. Cool. Everything's great. But then when I go back to, I leave his kitchen, I lose the ability to cook. Someone gifts me the ability to cook again. I go into someone else's kitchen. Now, I still know how to make a cake, but my capability to make that cake has been diminished. My capability is less than. So I can still make that same cake, but it's going to be less than the cake that I made when I had full access to the full pantry. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I feel like that's why Swan Sanche can make a fine gateway until which granted they didn't have gateways before she got stilled, but I imagine she was powerful enough to make a gateway. But then when she was healed, she could only make small gateways because she only had X level of power. She had enough power to make a gateway, but not enough power to make a large gateway, which then leads into another question, like, what is there something to that? Is there something to, I have to channel X amount in order to create a gateway, but someone else has to channel X plus 2 to make a gateway? Is that also a personal identification thing? Is that also a personal comfort thing? Like that becomes an interesting dynamic to it as well.
Yeah.
Am I making sense or am I rambling?
No, I think you're making sense. My brain is being a bit of a
this is how we know we got a good a good topic, because both of us are going.
I'm trying to follow like a train of thought. I'm trying to listen to you, and also my brain is like pulling at trains of thought, and then it's never going fully either direction. Is this what like that's what I must imagine like very mild ADHD is like?
Oh, I've got extreme ADHD. So yes, that's exactly what. Unless it is the hyperfixation of the day, in which case nothing else makes any sense.
I got
Nothing
something
else
you can
matters
hyperfixate on.
except for that one specific hyperfixation.
So I wonder then, for Androl, there's a finite limit to how large he can make a gateway. And up to that largest possible one he can make any variety of shape, dimension, like seemingly it's always in some form of square or rectangle. But within that, he can make it of any size all the way down to, potentially microscopically small. Oh, the
Dude, can you imagine?
the Ashaman vasectomy clinic.
I was just gonna say, could you imagine opening up a gateway inside someone?
Yes, I can.
And you went right to the balls.
Bruh, what's that? Constipated? Not with Androl's gateway remedy.
Oh no. Now stay really still and bear down.
Don't sneeze or you'll have a perforated bowel. Relax, your anus. Bruh.
The possibilities are endless.
But
Oh,
Androl
God.
has a finite limit to how large he can make it with his talent. Because he goes on and he makes it as big as he possibly can. Those that have to use pure strength to mimic the weaves, we don't know that they have a limit to how large they can make it, because just the more power they're able to put into it, the larger they are generally able to make the gateway, though
Yeah.
it does not seem to be a linear progression. Like, if you make a gateway the size of a door frame and you use, I'm going to use an arbitrary numbering system, 5 points of power.
Yeah. I mean, that's all
And
you
it
can
takes
do.
it takes 5 points of power to make a gateway the size of a standard doorway. Well, you would think, well, if you use 10 points of power, you now make a gateway twice the size. But it's not. It doesn't scale linearly. Linearly. If you use
Linear.
10 points of power, you make a gateway that's 1.5 times bigger, or the size, 1.5 times the size of a regular doorway. So yes, you can make it bigger as you put more power into it, but it's not just like, well, if I use twice the power, I get twice the gateway for traveling, or even for just gateway period. It doesn't seem to be that way. Because Rand remarks, like, whenever he's trying to make the gateways for them to push, like, send all the wagons and stuff through one of the several times, like, he's got all the Ashaman doing that. He's like, I tried to make it as big as possible, but I feel like I just hit a limit where I couldn't make it any bigger.
Well, that therein, oh God, that gets into the nature of weaves, because
Well, we got to save that.
yeah, well, but I'm just saying the location. We've already established that the location of the weave dictates the shape and nature of the weave. I mean, are we going to say that oh God, okay, no, my brain is doing that thing really quick. Cause I'm just fucking, I'm gonna cook. Let me cook for just a minute. So if we say that I am channeling, and the amount I can channel is gallons per minute, right? I can channel 5 gallons per minute of Sidene, let's say, and that's enough to create a gigantic gateway. But I only need 1 gallons per minute to create a gateway big enough for myself to walk through. But if I go 2 gallons per minute of gateway energy, that same weave, are they can be bigger, I guess. You can just stretch that out. Are they like Celtic knotting? Is there a pattern that you can just add additional chains, additional links in the chain, additional waves in the weave, additional patterns, additional fluctuations? Say in crochet people knit. Maria, I know you're watching. Knitting people who knit a certain row of yarns. Maybe I can only knit 5 rows of yarn with 1 gallons per minute of sardine. But maybe if I do 2 gallons per minute of sardine, increase that intensity, increase the amount of sardine I'm putting into that, now I can knit 10 per row.
Well, think about it. So using like the knitting and weaving thing, and sorry guys, my left eye contact is being an absolute butt munch right now.
That's why I keep brushing my beard. I'm not actually brushing my beard. I'm scratching my face.
So if you use a certain thickness of yarn in weaving and like doing the whole weaving of a doorway, and then you turn around and you try to weave the same kind of arch of a doorway, or you replace that yarn with yarn that's twice as thick, the opening of the doorway doesn't become twice as big because there are still spots where the yarn overlaps and you don't get this full expansion out of the width of the yarn. So it does get bigger, but it doesn't get twice as big. It's like some factor of the thicker weaves that it gets bigger. But it weighs twice as much, which is irrelevant for these weaves.
No, but there's the dynamic
it's
there.
It's twice as dense, but it's not twice as. Oh,
yeah.
Does that mean then that if you did what Avienda did when they were running from the Shanchan and tried to unravel the gateway so that it couldn't be replicated, if it had been a much bigger gateway, would the explosion have been like a true factor of the power put in bigger? Like if you use 10 times the amount of power to make a gateway, even though the gateway wouldn't be 10 times the size, would it result in a 10 times the strength explosion? Because the density of the power is still 10 times greater.
Or is it less about, okay, so because what we've understood, just bringing my like real world physics into this, the chemical properties of different materials can yield different energy reactions, right? That's why they use plutonium and uranium for nuclear weapons, because when they split those atoms, the energy reaction is much greater than if they use iron or sodium, right? Sodium, though, has a much greater reaction when you throw it into water than does iron, or you know what I'm saying? So,
well, yeah, it's more reactive, so it's a less stable metal.
Environmentally more reactive. So, if I am using a gateway at 1 gallons per minute, at x plus 1, and I start trying to unravel the weave like Avienda did, and I turn it into an explosion, does that explosion become bigger if I used x plus 2? Or does it matter because those weaves collapse into another entirely different weave, which gives that the strength? So are we saying we're changing the chemical property?
If you use real world physics, you have the law, like the conservation of energy principles. So you're like, because it still collapsed into a different weave, that extra energy doesn't just disappear. It's just like when Rand wants to make Balefire hit more stuff and erase further back in time, which is never what he consciously thinks. He just thinks, oh, big white rod of fire.
Yeah.
He puts more power into it and it deals more damage. It burns further back in time. It burns more stuff further back in time. So I would imagine the same would be true for the gateways, because you still have that same level of power in the weaving as you go up, and however much power you put into the weaving of the gateway. That all of that weave, all of that power has to go somewhere and do something. And it
And
either has to just be released and dissipate, or it all collapses into that other weave, or a fair portion of it does. A increment, or a factorial, or whatever, like a scaling portion of it collapses into that same explosive weave as whenever Avienda did it.
dude, I don't know, but I love this. I love where we're going with this, and I wish I had more information on that. But I feel like this is one of, when we have the conversation about how, it's a hard magic system.
Mm-hmm.
But the more we dive into it, the more it becomes sort of a soft magic system, right?
I think it's, if you start looking for, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think the more you start looking into concrete answers as to how things work in a magic system, period, but especially one that, you know, Robert Jordan didn't ever sit down, as far as we know, and write out the rules for, here's what happens whenever you put twice as much power into a gateway weave. Here's what happens if you unravel erroneously the weaves for a twice as powerful gateway, or whatever. Like the kind of finite and very specific kind of mechanism style answers we're looking for just weren't ever explained.
But we
And
we
I
also
think the
have,
magic system is hard enough to make asking these questions like reasonable, and make it a fun topic, because it's a lot more reasonable to ask, like, what happens if you put twice as much power into a gateway and then unravel it like Avienda did? Is it twice as big of an explosion? Is it the same explosion or not? Than it is to sit there and be like, what if you put more energy into Avada Kedavra? Like,
okay,
there's no energy to put into that. Like,
it's not the right podcast for this, because I will talk Harry Potter mechanics all day, because that is 100% a soft magic system. I don't care what anybody says. It is. I will die on this hill.
there's people arguing that it's not soft magic.
There's people arguing about everything.
Well, I mean, okay, fair.
No, yes, there is
We
people
live in-
arguing about
we live in a
anything.
world
No, there are some things that people agree on. No, there's nothing that everybody agrees on, Josh.
We live in
Shut
a
up,
world where people
Josh.
legitimately think the Earth
Sorry.
is flat. So I'm not.
I mean,
yeah,
look.
okay.
Yeah. Look. When it comes to gateways, like this, oh god, you could probably chew any subject up like this when it comes to the Wheel of Time. And not only will you answer questions by references and callbacks to the books, but you can also answer these questions by references and callbacks to interviews. You can answer these questions with references and callbacks to panels. Good lord, my brain is going faster than my mouth is. But in every single situation, we basically get down to the point that people are different. We all have a uniqueness about us. We all have something about us that sets us apart. Now, you can be a part of a demographic. I can be a white male. I can be a part of a demographic. But I, as a white male, do not represent all white males. I never will. There's absolutely no. And as a matter of fact, the subset of white male that I am that matches me perfectly is me. And it doesn't matter what demographic you can align with. You are one unique element in a tapestry of differences. So honestly, oh God, this book series is so amazing because so many plot conflicts come from people going, we're so different, we're so different, we're so different. We're not so different. We do things differently, and there are different cultural markers no matter where. I mean, famously, and I will die on this hill, famously at WatCon a number of years ago, we had a teenage baseball team, and there were a lot of people that got pressed because there were a lot of things that were happening, but ultimately it's just a different culture. It's people with different views and different cultures and different ways of interacting with the world. And once we broke that barrier down and started hanging out with them, it was a great time. But it takes a recognition of, hey, I recognize you come from a different place, but that's cool. That's okay. We still can find common ground. And I don't care where you come from or who you are, you can find common ground with those people. And it's almost like Robert Jordan took his experience in the military, where you join up and day one, you go to basic training and you're there with 50, 60 other people, and you don't know who they are. You all shaved heads and all in the same set of clothing. And then you get out of basic training where everybody's dressed back in their individual style and growing their hair back out and styling themselves up the way they did before they joined. And you're going, holy shit, I never would have been friends with you had it not been for basic training. But now I know you and I know who you are. And I'm like, and I'm not saying I never would have been friends with you because I hate you. I'm saying I never would have been friends with you because I just wouldn't have known you. We never would have associated in any kind of social circles. And Robert Jordan has this entire series about people not understanding each other because they come from different cultures, and people needing to overcome those cultural barriers and find common ground or be destroyed. Sounds like a pretty good lesson to learn. And I love it. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. I don't care. Last thoughts.
No, there's nothing to be sorry for. It
That's
was quite the impressive line of philosophical thought. Which I love. I love philosophical thought and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't think I have too much to add, honestly. I mean, how do you add on to that?
Sorry.
No, they're fine, dude. It's I mean, I think to be fair, it's relatively rare that I'm left like absolutely like I have nothing to add. There's nothing I could say to that. It is nice when it happens because then it's just like I can just like there's nothing for me to add. Fucking perfect.
As far as gateways go,
Just
it
like
is
just like skimming and traveling, you have to view life like skimming and traveling. You need to understand where you are before you can have a good understanding of where you want to be.
hard
And you need to
facts.
have a good understanding of where you want to be so that you can figure out the appropriate path to move forward from where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, sir.
Yeah. Or you can just embrace the philosophical words of Toe Mater, where there ain't no need to watch where I'm going, just need to know where I've been.
Or you can embrace the philosophical words of Genghis Khan. Leave no eyes open to weep.
I don't know that I would go with that one.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Black Tower Podcast. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you giving us the old thumbs up in the episode. If you like
we
what you see
appreciate you
here,
listening to Mr. FBI guy that's now listening to all of our episodes.
right? Like, I feel like if he's not subscribed by now, I would be like kind of insulted, right?
Where they're listening now.
Well, but subscribed. Like,
Yeah, hopefully. But they're definitely listening now. If they weren't before, they are now. Thanks to Mr. Genghis Khan 2.0 over here.
Yeah, that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. We love you, and we're grateful for you. And we hope to see you at the Gathering Madness. We hope to see you eventually one day. It doesn't matter where. We want to hang out with you. It doesn't matter. Jordan Con, Watt Con. Andrew, are you planning on going to Jordan Con?
We'll see. That is up in the air. I don't want to make any commitments too far out.
No, come on, coward. Let's go. Just kidding.
We'll see.
Anyway, thanks for watching. From all of us here at the Black Tower, I have been your Sorvan Mahale, Josh.
And I have been your Bajan Mahale, Andrew. Don't forget, get your W, get your virtual tickets for Gathering Madness, and we'll see you all again next week for the next episode.